Hell Internet, and a little bit of a different video here. It's ostensibly a 500 subscriber special, although that might be a little bit premature. But I have decided that whenever I do any kind of milestone video, it should be in this vlog form, which I've since abandoned for main videos, and so here I am. And even though it might be a bit early, I'm going to do this video now because it's a timely opportunity for me to reflect on the channel and parasociality and the idea of community in itself on the internet, which I've had cause to think about a little bit over the last few days. And there's one thing especially that I know about subscriber specials, and that is suffering. So I've come here to a classic Thai chicken, grilled chicken and sticky rice restaurant, but the star of the show here will be the Som Tam Thai, which I've asked them to make extra spicy, because of course I have. So you can get to watch me try and talk about my feelings on parasociality and the internet while suffering through a very spicy papaya salad. I was thinking of actually having Som Tam Lao, which is the Lao-style papaya salad where they add the fermented fish sauce, but I've chickened out of that, but I will have to do it, of course, for the 1,000 subscriber video. Okay, so let's get into some papaya salad, shall we? Okay, let's just get started. The first bite isn't too spicy, but I'm sure it will build up over time. So it's starting to build up now, but it turns out actually this isn't as spicy as I was fearing it might be, so I don't want to get too cocky, but I think 14 years of living in Thailand has definitely had an effect on my spice tolerance. So sorry about that if you're expecting to see me suffer. So apologies too if there's any road noise. I'm on quite a busy road here. I'll try not to talk when there's any large trucks going by, but still. But as I said, this particular time to hit 500 subscribers gave me a chance to reflect on the nature of parasociality, which is a term I'm sure many people understand, but just in case you don't, it's the idea that when you are part of a creator a consumer relationship, there is a disparity. So the people who watch videos know the creators, but the creators have no idea about the people who are watching their videos as people. And I'm just starting now to see the other side of that a little bit with a couple of my previous videos, perhaps more so with the anti-Zionist video where the comments that came back were so obviously polarized against me, which I obviously expected and I obviously requested in making the video. But the way that it came back was sort of a new experience for me. And then on the subsequent video talking about Rory Stewart and compassionate conservatism, the comments were much more even-handed and balanced. Most people, insofar as they were criticizing me, were not being mean about it and were picking up on things which perhaps, on balance, I genuinely reflect. I was maybe appearing to be slightly more critical of Rory Stewart and the Rest is Politics hosts than I maybe intended, although, by and large, I stand by the content of the video. It is starting to heat up now, as you can see the Som Tam is slowly being consumed, and yeah, I'm starting to get a more consistent glow going on in my mouth, but it's actually not that bad, so sorry, I'll have to ask for extremely spicy next time. As I say, this experience the last couple of videos has got me sort of experiencing parasociality nominally from the other side, or still, the tiniest of tiny creators, and the way I interact with the comments. I mean, just to reply to most or all comments on these videos, in particular the last two, it takes a non-trivial amount of emotional energy, and obviously at 500 subscribers that's fine because the number of comments you get is entirely manageable, but were that to go up to 1,000 or beyond, clearly, and we see most people take a very different approach to comments. One political commentator I watch seems to have a rubric of just hearting every single comment, but never replying, as best I can tell anyway. And again, that's a perfectly legitimate way of doing things. You have to be, I think, very careful as you get into this space especially if you ever touch on anything that's remotely controversial, which I do. You have to be careful how far you're going to dive into the pool, even on videos where you have ostensibly asked for comments. And most people, what do they call it? A call to action, that YouTube wants you to encourage your community to engage in the comments. And that kind of brings me on to the subject of community in general, because I think 7 years ago, I would have been far more bullish on the idea of internet communities being a functional replacement for geographical communities. And I still think we do need to be part of a world where non-geographical communities have a very important role to play. But, you know, and it's reflected in the phrase touch grass that many people are coming out with recently. There is definitely, insofar as we are still humans and human creatures living in a human world, we do need to be connected to the geographical locale and the people in it to some extent. And that has changed my concept of what I would ever have in mind as a community around anything I would to do online. And that's before we get to the fact that I was never really looking to start a community in the first place. I've sometimes referred to the videos, especially the philosophy videos that I make, as elaborate marginalia, in that I'm just approaching the work that I'm going through, kind of making my, not first pass, because I go through it several times, but making my kind of considered assembly of thoughts. But in order to make it sort of pass for me and be able to kind of internalize it in any sort of way, I have to make that a narrative. And the best way to make it a narrative is to make it into some kind of product and put it out into the world in some form, and hence the YouTube videos. Which is not to say, of course, that I wouldn't enjoy it for people to watch the videos and give feedback and comment. That has to be part of it as well. And of course, I would never have put them up at all if I didn't want anyone ever to see them. That would have been, you know, counterproductive if I really was averse to people seeing them. So I don't want to be sort of too coy about that either. So there's just a few thoughts on the nature of community, and you know, nothing's going to be changing for me insofar as I'm still only on 500 subscribers and not approaching any kind of significant number, so that's fine for the time being. But it is something that has just touched my awareness, I suppose you could say, in the last few weeks. The other thing I was going to mention in this video is, and if you're one of the people who has subscribed since the Rory Stewart video came out, that video caused quite a few of new subscribers I've got. I may be losing you right here with the opposite breath, but I do have a real ambivalence about the success of that video. It's the first video of mine that's ever got to like 2,000 views in the space of a week. And it, at least right now, although it's still only been out for a couple of weeks, at least right now it seems like it might even replace the Crisis in Education as the sort of video on my channel which gets the most kind of drip-fed views over the long term. And I'm really not sure how I feel about that, because although, like I say, I stand by everything that was put in that video, you know, it's not my typical rhetoric, or well, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. As much as maybe I am a little bit contentious in some of my more editorial style videos, and I try to make those clearly marked as separate from the more philosophical videos, it's not the sort of rhetoric I generally want to embrace. It's not the sort of way that I think that political discourse should generally carry forward. Although, of course, and I think I said this to Professor Dave in the conversation I had with him, it is the way that political discourse gets into the public awareness. You know, there is some sense in which the political antagonism is what gets the eyeballs in today's modern world. And you can't be ignorant of that, and you can't be completely heedless of that in the way that you approach these things. And obviously, I mean, you know, the title of the video itself, Rory Stewart and the myth of compassionate conservatism. I mean, that's about as close as I'm going to come to clickbait, let's put it that way. But still, we are going for a super spicy forkful here. There are some really full chilies on there. Let's see how we go. But on the flip side, and this is where I am, like I say, ambivalent, because I'm disappointed in one respect, but I think what the Rory Stewart video does show, and in some of the comments I received, is that the Overton window problem that I talked about in the video. Oh yeah, that's definitely spicier now. That's definitely a thing. And as I said, and as commenters rightly pointed out, this whole left-right designation is not always super helpful. But I think we all know what we're talking about here, and broadly speaking, it is true that the right wing are able to start from close or, almost at their most extreme positions and then compromise from there. And I'm not talking about, the centre-right people, the likes of Rory Stewart here, of course. I'm good now. What is just legitimate for any political group to argue for. And the right wing, it seems, can argue for their furthest right positions, ethno-state supremacy, Christian nationalism, total free markets and all things like that. And then they can compromise from there, and that's seen as fine. But if the left wing were to get anywhere close to the most extreme leftist positions, they would be drummed out of political life long before that, and they have been. There is not a single person in general Western political life who is arguing outwardly for the most extreme leftist positions. Now, there may be some who privately hold those positions, but if they're not arguing outwardly for them, then the Overton window does not consider those positions to be politically legitimate. And I'm not arguing for those positions either. But we must understand that if the whole framing of the discussion has been skewed to the right before we even start, then obviously ideas which, if we were anchored on the centre, would not be radical, are going to seem radical. And because the word radical, as used by, and here I do include people like Rory Stewart, is seen as just immediately discredited in any kind of normal political discourse, well, that means that huge parts of the range of possible political discussion are just being discarded out of hand. Whole chili on the somtam now. And a crispy dried shrimp as well. There's a little bit of the fishiness that I was looking to avoid. Now, right-wingers could try and come back here and say, well, that's because they have a legitimate tradition-based argument for that type of politics being the objectively correct one. And I still say prove it. And they can't, I would say. And you can go back to various other videos on my channel to sort of see my opinion on why they can't. Obviously, the Hannah Arendt ones are the ones which are perhaps the most detailed, but the video on the Euthyphro and my Christmas message from 2024 gives some indication of why I think that all of these Overton window bias to the right kinds of centrism, which basically, because of the bias, makes them essentially centre-right or possibly even to the right. Not far-right. I'm not saying everything is fascist, although certainly there are some warning signs. But yeah, with this bias, all of that seems to be quite normal, when in actual fact we do have a legitimately wider appreciation of what politics can be. And to say that, well, that's because we've proven what the best politics is just blatantly false. Just going to have a little bit of the raw cabbage that they give you with some Gaiyang Somtam dishes, because that will take the edge off the spice a little bit. Okay, and that brings me on to, I guess, the last part of this video, which is going to be the future of this channel. Insofar as it has a future, there have been times in the last 6 to 12 months where I've wondered if that were the case, and I've alluded to it, but yeah, I've just been far too down to see any productive effort in continuing with the sort of projects I've been doing on my channel, specifically the philosophy videos. It just seems like there's literally no point, because nobody is interested in that kind of nuanced thought about anything at all. And now obviously this is coming from a mentally darker place, but this, I guess, something that I have to thank the new subscribers and the viewers of the Rory Stewart video for, is that there was that kind of spark of interest and engagement, which obviously has given me a reason to bring attention back to this channel. However, for those people who did subscribe on the back of the Rory Stewart video, there will be some more editorial videos like that, of course, but the next 2 or 3 over the next couple of months will definitely be a return to what I would like to make the regular philosophy programming. I'm going to do the next video on Kant's Introduction to Metaphysics, which is halfway done already, but just got completely shelved, and I'll do another video on the Analects of Confucius to sort of get the ball rolling again. And if there's any philosophers that you would like to see me consider, no doubt Arendt will come up again at some point. But please leave any ideas. Please leave any ideas in the comments as we come to hopefully a return to lifelong learning. I know for a fact there's at least one subscriber, whether they are still subscribed or not, I don't know, who specifically subscribed to me because of my use of the term lifelong learning. And in the last 1 or 2 years, I think it's fair to say that I have failed in that regard. Perhaps not in total regard, but with regard to actual applied constructive learning on a subject that has nuance. It's something that I found very difficult to make happen in the last couple of years, and I would really like to get back to that. So in honor of that person, if they are still around, and in honor of all of you who have watched and enjoyed the videos, whether that be just recently with the Rory Stewart video or going back into the back catalogue, thank you once again for watching. Thank you for almost getting me to 500 subscribers. Who knows, maybe the 500th subscriber will come from the back of this video. And I will see you sometime soon with something a little less dry. A little more dry, you muppet. And a little less controversial. But don't worry, I'm sure I'll get controversial in the future. Bye for now.